So did Jeshua actually walk on water? Hey guys, it's John here on my back deck on a partly cloudy day, but it's in the mid 70s and the birds are chirping off in the distance. I'm sure you probably can't hear that because my software is so darn good. Sitting here drinking my mug of coffee. I get often asked on the channel about the miracles, the Jeshua's miracles. And though I'd love to say I have memories of the miracles, I have no memories of the miracles. I think that for the most part, the miracles are more mythological or embellishments to other stories than actual fact. But, I could be wrong as well. But when it comes down to the miracle of walking on water, there's a very specific thing to talk about in this. There's a huge discrepancy in the Bible about this story. You see, there are three different accountings of how this story played out. In the book of Matthew, the storm comes up, they're out at sea, and Jeshua walks up to the boat and gets Peter to step out of the boat, and Peter takes a few steps, and then he loses faith and plunges into the water, and that's where the line, "Ye of little faith," comes from. In the book of Luke, which is the version I prefer, actually, they're out at sea. They're terrified because the storm is so bad. And Jeshua walks by, proving that even in the eye of a storm, in the torment of a storm, you remaining calm within yourself, the storm does not affect you. The book of John, which I definitely I don't ascribe to John of old at all, but literally says that Jeshua walked up to the boat. They asked him to step into the boat, and then the whole boat was transported to shore, and they all stepped out onto shore safely. So the discrepancies themselves tell you that the story can't be chosen as infallible or factual because there's three different versions. For those of you know the play Rashomon, or the film Rashomon, you're looking at different people's perspectives about something, right? In Rashomon, they're coming from people who were eyewitnesses to the same event, having that experience. I tend to think these are written much later in time, and people are just trying to create the story. There's one theologian who says that the stories were written by Hermetic Jews who were very much into astrology, and they talk about during the time the maps of the sky were based upon Orion, and being based upon Orion, there's a weird similarity to this because Orion is said to be the son of God, and Orion is said to be sea walking in the sky. And so when you see this story of the son of God and sea walking, a lot of people believe, and this one theologian especially believes, that they were ascribing this Greek mythology to the story of Jeshua to make him exalted. But either way, when it comes down to this story of the walking on water and the miracles, Jeshua was an incredible man who understood his divinity. The miracles are stories created for people to believe in him, and specifically to believe in his messianic abilities. But he himself did not believe himself to be Messiah. And he called himself the Son of Man, not the Son of God. It comes down to this idea that we are the same as he. That's what he said all the way through all the other texts, right? So if you're going to believe that he walked on water, you have to believe that that we're the same as he, because that schism there would mean that there's a discrepancy in the infallible Bible, right? I often get people get very mad at me because they say the Bible is the inerrant word of God. And when I point out the inerrancies, they never speak again. They never respond. They never come back. Because I'm hoping what I've done is I've shown them to think they can think for themselves rather than deciding that this is all completely true. And once again, I always go back to the story of uh, Judas and how he died. There's two different ways in the Bible, so I bring that story up. I also bring up the story of walking on water because there are three different stories there. But let's talk about the 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 moral lessons that come from the three different stories, right? First lesson is less about Jeshua walking on water, but more about Peter stepping out of the boat. It's about him stepping out and believing he was the same until he lost faith in himself and he went under. That story is an amazing story because what it does is it shows you that you have the same divinity as Jeshua. It shows you that you have the ability. You just lack the faith in yourself to believe it. I often find that the channelers are channeling entities and angels and things of that nature because they don't believe in themselves. They don't believe that they themselves have the power within themselves. Um, and the only reason I say that, it's not to diminish them in any way, shape, or form. The only reason I say that is because I had that experience. I had the experience where I was channeling an entity, and over the course of 6 months, the entity went away. And we started referring to both myself and the entity as John I. And when one of the ladies in the group said, "Why are you saying John I?" the entity said that we're all in the oneness of God. And the only reason there is an entity in the room is because I had self-doubt and self-worth about myself. And I needed the entity to put faith in as something divine because I didn't believe the divine within myself. And as I was bringing more and more information through over these 6 months, I was becoming more comfortable with information just coming through. And what was happening at the 3-month mark was that the need for an extra personality for me to put faith in went away. And at 6 months, it was just me talking. So it's we all have the ability to tap into that oneness of God, right? So that story of Peter is literally a great moral story in saying that, yeah, you are the same as he. We are the same as our brother Jeshua. And, he was showing us what he found that we all can find. And ye of little faith was not ye of little faith in him. It was ye in little faith in yourself. Ye of little faith in your abilities. Ye of little faith that you are the creator of your experience. The second story, the Luke story, which I love, like I say, it's my favorite of the three, is the idea that even when the world seems to be swirling around you in this crazy torment of life, you remaining calm at the core means none of that can affect you. None of that bothers you. Jeshua walked by the boat calmly without a fear of the storm. When we're going through our own lives, the world can seem so crazy. Things can be going on. Things can seem daunting and crazy and just like out of control. But when we come back to our calm self, we release the fears. And when we release those fears, those things don't seem so harsh, so strong. I've told a story on here about the man screaming at my face, and rather than my reacting to him fearfully, either in offense or defense, I simply exhaled and went back to my calm space. And that's what resolved the entire situation, was the fact that I was able to remain calm and to think as he spoke. And as I was remaining calm and thinking, the storm calmed around me. We're all in the eye of our own hurricane, but what calms the storm around us is our being calm. We calm the eye of the storm, and the storm dissipates. So it comes down to this second version, this Luke being out there and watching him just walk by calmly when they were all panicking and freaking out, was really the lesson of all of your life experience, be it frantic, anxious, depressed, whatever it is, that's all your fear-based reaction to the world around you. That's living in reaction rather than living in action. And so by him coming into this space of going, look, I can calmly walk across this water during this storm that is freaking you out. And so he's showing you that you can calm within yourself and the outer world will come around you. The last version is Jeshua walks up to the boat and John says, step into the boat. And he goes to step in the boat and the whole boat goes to shore. Right. The moral of that version, I'm not 100% sure of. Is it that we invited him into our lives and it saves us? That could be the moral of that. That would be a very messianic experience. If you want to put it in the moral way I would think about it is we invite his beliefs into our life and it saves us. We welcome what he's saying as opposed to condemning what he's saying, and that saves us. So these three versions have really three different morals to it, but everyone gets stuck on the walking on the water part because that is the miracle, right? But all of these stories have a various moral theme to them. And when you look at them from the aspect of the theme itself being the important part of the story, you start to realize that they're just parables. They're just stories to show you an idea, to give you a concept. And it's all the miracles that you hear about. Now, once again, the miracle of the blind man being cured of blindness. What's that story? He brought the man to his faith the way he could come to that faith. And so he was cured. He put mud on his face, but he never did that to anybody else, just to that one guy. But that blind man needed something tactile to put faith in. So it was the man's faith that healed him. The woman touched his garment. She was cured. He says, it is your faith that heals you. So all of these miraculous stories that you hear are really just moral stories to show us about our own divinity. And when you look at even the story of Lazarus, right? He raised Lazarus from the dead, right? Lazarus would not have raised from the dead if Lazarus hadn't chosen to raise from the dead. Was he dead? We don't know. Was he in a coma? I've been thinking he was dead. We don't know. But there's a lot of fallacies with that story too. For Lazarus to have already been in the tomb, they would have already done all the things to the dead body that would have made it not come back to life, right? And so when you look at it from that perspective, that story has some flaws in it directly. But the other part of that is that I've told the story on this channel about the woman who came who had cancer, who I spoke to through the higher self. There was another video on that on this channel. Who's to say that the consciousness of Jeshua wasn't speaking to the consciousness of Lazarus, and Lazarus took up his body again, like Jeshua did in the tomb, right? So the physical world is just an illusion of belief. And we are only our consciousness, and our consciousness can choose to pick up the body again. But it does come down to the choice. And so when you look at these miracles, walking on water, water to wine, all these things, realize that most of them are going to be metaphorical or to teach us a moral story or an empowerment story. And when you look at it from that perspective, you can see much deeper meaning in all of the stories. Much deeper meaning. Talk to the Samaritan woman at the well, told her everything she ever did. That was such a beautiful story of equality. And so, I mean, that there's a beautiful story, When you look at the idea of each of these miracles from the perspective of what is the lesson they're teaching in this story, you find a whole new dialogue coming out of the text that is so much more beautiful, so much more stunning than the inerrancy of each story being factual. Because in the books themselves, they can't be inerrant because they tell different stories. But they all have some moral compass or some teaching inside of them that is important for your divinity, for your power, for your being able to step into your own enlightenment and come to the space of realizing you can walk across the water of your storms of life calmly without worrying about going under. because it's a matter of you being calm within that's creating the calmness without. And so that's my story on this. I hope that this makes sense to you. I hope you guys are enjoying this day. I hope you're going to be able to get out and enjoy nature like I am. And I'm hoping you're enjoying your coffee like I am. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.